I'm going to evaluate this 190 SL cylinder head. Prior to the video, I went through and did the time-consuming process of using a micrometer to measure the actual thickness of the cylinder head. And this is the most critical thing we got to deal with. Right here I've got written down the original thickness is 3 inches 346. The minimum thickness is 3 inches 306. So you got 40 thousandths of material that can be removed from the cylinder head. And as you can see, I've already written down the measurements right here. And let's start over here on the left, the 3 inches 317, 320, 321, 323, 321. So basically it's the same thickness over here. Up at the top, 3 inches 344, 334, 336, 338. Anyway, what this is now a Hemi wedge. They cut this thing crooked. So this thing is thin on this side, thick on this side. It won't materially affect the performance, but it's just something to be aware of. Now then, we've got the minimum thickness 3,306. This is thin over here at 3,317. So if you subtract the 6 from the 17, that leaves 11 thousandths. Minimum 11 thousandths of material before you hit the minimums. 11 thousandths represents the thickness of 5 human hairs. Each human hair is about 2 thousandths thick. So that means you're awfully close to the minimums, and what that means is when it gets thin, this intake valve is going to be very close to the top of the piston, and in fact it may even smack the top of the piston. So you have to make sure that you sink the intake valves below the surface, about 60 thousandths below the parting surface. But what that means then is the valve stem is sticking up further, and your valve adjustment will become problematic, and also your cam to cylinder head distance is now much shorter. So what you're going to want to do is to put shims underneath the cam towers to get the cam timing back where it's supposed to be, which as the head gets thinner, the distance between the camshaft and the crankshaft closes up. So you want to maintain that same center to center distance of the crank to the cam, and by that and you use shims underneath the cam towers. I've noted here that this is flat, and what you need to do to check that is use a straight edge. This is an actual, let's see, where is it? This is an actual Starrett. This is a precision machine tool right here. I don't know if you can see it or not, but it says the L. Starrett Company. This is an actual precision piece of equipment, the straight edge. And what you do is you lay it on there, and you use your feeler gauges, and you try to see how much clearance you have between the feeler gauge and between the straight edge and the cylinder head. And this is a 3 thousandths, and it won't go in there. So the head is flat, which is at least they milled the head flat. Now then, so before we if the head is not flat, typically when you remove them, they will bow in the middle so that just essentially it bows. And what you have to be careful of is you need to straighten the head before you mill it, because if you mill it here and here to the point where you get to this surface, you end up with a misshapen head. It's no longer flat on this surface right here. And before we move on, let's these water distribution tubes. You can see all the corrosion that has taken place. That's due to head gasket loosening up, lack of maintenance with the coolant, etc. These cooling tubes have to be removed, and then you will weld around here and remachine it, and then install new cooling tubes. These tubes are not the same material as the cylinder head, so you cannot just weld while these tubes are in place. They start to they do strange things. They start to sputter and spark, and they are a form of an alloy, but they're not aluminum. So all these tubes have got to be removed, all welded up here. and then machined out, and then tubes reinstalled. And of course, now when you do some welding like that, there's a very good possibility the cylinder head will warp. Now let's see, let's check over here. The combustion chambers don't look too bad at all. This one's got a little pitting in it. I would probably weld inside here because see how thin it is between here and here. You've got hardly any material for the gasket to seat on, so I would weld up inside here. I would weld around here and make this hole a little bit smaller so you have more cross section for the gasket to grab onto. You can see right here there's hardly anything for the gasket to grab on, for the gasket to secure to. So this is a known problem area for leakage. All right, let's flip it over, and you can tell it's a 190 SL because you got the square intake ports. I know holes there somewhere. Didn't move. And again, checked flatness on the top surface, and this one was flat. This is pretty unusual because ordinarily they warp and people don't straighten them out, but this is a straight cylinder head, or flat on both sides, which is very impressive. Here's your production date. It looks like 1959. Doesn't mean much. People often want to know what the numbers are right here. There's a looks like a 3. Here's a 2. Here's a 2. And this represents the various oversizes of valves that the factory installed. You don't have to worry about that when you're installing new valves. I'm sorry, guides. This represents the oversizes that the factory used to install when selecting guides to go in the cylinder head. And the other issue on this particular head is people that do not know how to remove the timing chain pins. Timing chain rail pins that go in these holes here. They're threaded, so you screw into them and you pop them out. Well, somebody didn't know how to do that, and so what they did was drilled out and knocked them out from the back side. So these holes have to be repaired. Got good threads in here. The threads for the spark plugs all look good. So overall, this is a good salvageable head, and now you know what to do, what to look for when you're selecting or evaluating a cylinder head.